I grew up on a farm and realized that if I wanted to see more of the world than the local tractor parts store, I would have to join the military. We were neither poor nor middle class. My mother made my clothes, and we never went on vacation. Since I was 7 years old, I have been loading and stacking bales of hay, straw, and alfalfa by hand. When I graduated from high school, my best friend and I, against our parents' wishes, joined the Marines for 4 years. Yay. We served at 2 bases in the U.S. and then were sent to South Korea and Japan. I was comfortable around short people as I was only 5 feet 7 inches tall, short but strong. Due to cultural differences, we were encouraged to spend our free time in designated bars and entertainment areas for Americans. My friend Hal and I visited as many tourist attractions as we could, knowing we wouldn't have the opportunity again. I spent half my money on girls and sent the other half home. Hal was treated several times for diseases transmitted through sex. I took the safe route and avoided getting sick. We participated in all extracurricular activities that interested us, including various competitions that our colleagues came up with. When we got our honorable discharge, everyone called me Army, even though my name was Calvin Bostic. When we got home, Hal continued to call me Army, and the nickname stuck. Locals picked it up, thinking it was a reference to my service in the Marines. I never corrected them. In the service, I learned to ignore hints. Belford, our farming town, didn't offer many job opportunities other than farming or construction. I didn't want to live far from my parents. I saw the world and wanted to settle down. Since I grew up on a farm, I decided to get into construction. I was a laborer and worked hard, loading and unloading everything from bricks and blocks to drywall, trusses, and, of course, lumber. I was sent to deliver and manually stack loads in areas where forklifts couldn't reach. I was familiar with hard work and could work all day without getting tired. Of course, at the end of the day, I was tired, took a shower, and relaxed, drinking a couple of beers with friends. When I first met Stacy at Higgins's, it was love at first sight. She was the sexiest girl I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. I probably asked her out 30 times before she said yes. I think she did it so I would stop asking her. We got along great. We were like two peas in a pod. She had it all: looks, character, humor, and of course, she knew how to use her curves. 9 months later, after constant meetings, I proposed to her. We got married 6 months later. We were both 24 years old and happy. We talked about starting a family, but agreed to first save enough money to afford a child without putting undue strain on our limited incomes. Once we paid our rent and covered our monthly expenses, we had almost no money left. We lived paycheck to paycheck. Somerville, the third largest city in our state, was 40 miles from our hometown of Belford. Kensington was a growing bedroom community that was home to many Somerville residents. Kensington, just 22 miles from Belford, added new businesses to meet the growing needs of its residents. One such facility was Stokes Fitness Palace, a mixed gym that catered to both men's and women's fitness. Army, you won't believe the exciting news I learned today. Really? It's another sale at the dollar store? I joked. No, stupid. My friend Brenda was out to lunch today and told me about a new fitness center that's opening in Kensington. They're interviewing potential employees over the next week. She found out the starting salary for new recruits. Honey, if they hire me, I'll earn about 30% more than I currently earn in salary and tips at the restaurant. I'll be able to earn almost as much as you bring home. That's wonderful, right? She stated. We can finally start saving money for our family. I want us to finally have the child we've been dreaming about for so long. I hear what you're saying, but what do you know about fitness and gyms? Don't you need some kind of education or something? I don't know what their requirements are for these positions, and I'll never know unless I go for an interview. Connie agreed to come in early and cover for me, so I could go to the interview at Stokes Fitness Palace, and I'll stay a couple hours later to fill in for her that evening. Brenda said she heard they were accepting walk-ins, no appointment required. Darling, I don't think there's any harm in finding out what jobs they have on offer, and there aren't many other prospects here in Belford. If you get hired, you'll have to commute every day. I don't want to get your hopes up, but sure, give it a try. The next day after work. You will not believe, Army, but they offered me a job. The Stokes Fitness Palace in Kensington you were talking about? Yes, they will start paying me 25% more than I make now, and after a 2-week performance evaluation, they will increase it to 30% more, just like Brenda said. It almost sounds too good to be true. What exactly will you be doing there, Stacy? This is the best part of the Army. They have their own internal on-the-job training program. They will teach me everything about their machines and strength equipment. Once I get the hang of it, they'll make me the venue manager. I will help those who have no experience working with equipment. Over time, if I put in the effort, I can become a trainer, which could add another 20% to my salary. Isn't this wonderful? Stacy exclaimed. When do they want you to start? I told them I need to give at least a week's notice at the restaurant. I don't want to leave them stranded. They said that's fine with them. Are you still okay with that, Army? Looks like we can start saving more money now to start our family. As soon as you think we can afford it, I want to have our baby, honey, Stacy purred. Nothing will give me more pleasure, I assured. At first, Stacy wore conservative clothes to her new job, regular pants with brightly colored blouses. Within a month, she had bought 5 pairs of leggings with matching tops. She said her clothes should reflect the atmosphere of the gym. I could understand it. 3 months later, she started wearing short spandex shorts. I didn't like it because I could see her outline. She simply brushed me off as being overly protective and showed me photos taken in the gym, proving that all the other girls dressed just like her. She even started receiving cash tips from some of the guys she helped in various situations. To calm my fears, I left work early one day and dropped by Stokes Fitness Palace unannounced. I watched her for a couple of minutes before she noticed me and hurried over to greet me. She didn't do anything indecent or flirtatious that would bother me. "Hi, honey, what are you doing here?" she asked enthusiastically. "I just wanted to see where my wife works. It's a very nice place. I'm impressed." "I'm glad you came by, Army. Come on, I'll introduce you to my boss," she insisted. She led me to a huge man. "Gerald, this is my husband, Calvin Bostic. Everyone calls him Army. Army, this is Gerald Jenkins. Everyone calls him Goliath for obvious reasons." As we shook hands, Goliath tried to intimidate me with his grab without being too obvious. He was strong as a bull, but I did not flinch. He was easily 6'2" inches 188 centimeters to my 5'9" inches 175 centimeters. I knew I weighed 175 pounds 80 kilograms and estimated his weight to be at least 245 pounds 111 kilograms pure muscle mass. He was in great shape, an obvious bodybuilder, the perfect advertisement for a fitness center. We both smiled widely for Stacy's sake. Someone called him over and Stacy took me around the room, explaining many of their operations. I actually saw 2 other employees dressed exactly like her. I'm glad I stopped by. This calmed my thoughts considerably. Shortly after this meeting, Stacy began coming home with increased desire. We had rough sex almost every night. She attributed her increased appetite to her workouts, fitness, and healthier eating habits. She lost some fat and replaced it with muscle. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, I accepted her new energy with equal enthusiasm, which usually left us both breathless. She never mentioned the guys she worked with, not even Goliath, which I thought was a good sign. And then came the day that changed our lives forever. On Friday night, Stacy started talking about changing her schedule. "Honey, I know I don't usually work on weekends, but there's a big event at the gym tomorrow, and they need all the staff. There will be a special event that starts at 7 p.m. It's a special event, not open to the general public, but they want all the spouses to be present. I want to show everyone that you are my husband. Will you do your best to be there? Please," she asked, batting her eyes in her flirtatious style. "What kind of promotion, Stacy? You know I'm not going to sign up for any of their programs. I get enough exercise doing deliveries. I promise they won't try to sign you up for anything." "Well, what is it then? Are you getting some kind of reward or something?" "Maybe," she answered evasively. After this promotional event, we will be able to start our family sooner than we thought. You just have to come and see for yourself. I can't say more. Well, okay. I'll come and see what this big deal you're talking about is. That night, she tired us both out so much that I could barely move. She was already gone when I woke up on Saturday morning. I called my buddy Hal and spent most of the day helping him with the car. He was always doing something to increase his power. I told him about my conversation with Stacy about today's mysterious event. I shared my suspicions with him, but could not understand what was the matter. "Hey, dude," Hal began, "why don't I come with you tonight to support you if you have any concerns? And by the way, come inside the house. I'll show you my latest gadget that I won at poker a couple of weeks ago. It's a compact voice recorder in the shape of a pen. It records up to 70 hours on a single charge. It has a built-in USB adapter for downloading recordings. Turning the top turns it on perfectly. Won't suspect. My friend who lost it to me in a poker game bought it to record evenings with his girlfriend. I tested it, and it picks up clear sound up to 12 meters away. Wow, that's like a spy gadget. I don't think you'll need it, but it can't hurt to have it with you just in case. Thanks, Hal." Hal and I arrived at the Stokes Fitness Palace a few minutes before 7. The big man came to the door asking for identification. I showed him my driver's license, and he nodded. When Hal tried to come in with me, the guy stopped him and said, "Sorry, buddy, this is a private event, and you're not invited, just Mr. Bostic." I looked at the guy and said, "No problem. Come on, Hal, let's leave. If you can't get in, then neither can I. Hey, buddy, be sure to tell Stacy Bostic that her husband tried to come." We started to walk out to the car. Holla. "Don't leave, sir. You are a VIP guest. Fine, we will let your friend in. But I need to collect your cell phones before entering. As I said, this is a private event, and no recordings or photographs are allowed." We reluctantly handed him our numbers, and he placed them in separate envelopes with our names on them. "They will be returned to you upon departure. For your safety and protection, these envelopes will remain sealed until they are returned." He locked the door behind us as we entered the main hall. We saw 2 large tables with handles in the middle of the room, around which stood a large group of men working out or warming up for something. Our escort asked Hal to wait in the hall while he took me to the office where Stacy was waiting. I nodded to Hal that everything was fine. He relaxed and began to wander around the hall. We entered the office, and the door closed behind us. I saw Gerald Goliath Jenkins sitting across the table from me. Stacy was next to him in a dark robe. 5 other guys suddenly appeared behind me, waiting for me to appear. "Hey, Stacy, what's going on? Why are you wearing a robe and not regular clothes?" I asked. Stacy looked at Goliath nervously after my question, and he nodded at her before ordering, "Show him." Stacy, almost trembling, demanded, "You swore he wouldn't remember anything?" "Nothing." "I swear on my life, sweetie. Show him." Stacy took off her robe, leaving her in the tiniest bikini I'd ever seen. They were 3 pieces of fabric the size of postage stamps, barely held together by thin straps. There is nothing left to the imagination. "Stacy, I asked you to tell me what's going on. Why are you almost naked in front of these men? Have you cheated on me? Is this your way of annoying me?" I asked in rage. "Army, it's not what you think." "Well, in a way, yes, but really, no. Honey, this is wonderful. After tonight, we will finally have enough money to start our family. I won't have to wait any longer to have children. That's the whole point, really. I'm doing this for us." "What are you talking about, Stacy? Get dressed and let's get out of here right now. Let's go." When I tried to take her hand, Goliath stood up and stood in front of her. "I'm afraid I can't allow that, Army. Stacy will stay here for the night. You'll get her back safe and sound tomorrow, but tonight she belongs here, and there's nothing you can do about it," he stated smugly. "Damn it, I can't." But when I tried to pull her out, 5 guys behind me quickly surrounded me and held me in place. "Don't touch him," Stacy screamed. "If one hair falls from his head, the deal is off." Goliath acknowledged her remark and nodded to the guys to handle me carefully. Why don't I explain everything to you, Army? What did you do in the Army? I was never in the Army. I was in the Marines. They called me Army. Why did they call you that? Did your buddies think you weren't good enough for the Marines? He grinned. Someone explain to me what's going on here, or you'll have to pay for this, I shouted. Okay, Army. Listen, here's the thing. I really like your little wife, Stacy. I tried long and hard to get her, but she won't give up. I talked to her about what might convince her. When she told me that you two are trying to save money to start a family, I came up with a plan. I suggested to her that if I can attract enough interest, she can split the winnings with the winner if the winner also gets the night with her. Rejected the idea, but then started asking questions about the amount of money and the number of participants. Then I realized that she was interested. I only needed to work out the details of the plan. Goliath continued, I knew she wanted me as much as I wanted her. I told her that if she agreed, she could walk away with $20,000 and spend the night with me. She asked how that was possible. I asked her to make a video at home to show to potential participants and attract their interest. When I received enough interest, I began to organize the tournament. But the thought of cheating continued to bother her, and then I had a problem. Another plan. I suggested to her that you two, the Army, would have the opportunity to participate. If you miraculously win, she will not be obliged to spend the night with the winner, and you will receive all the money. This unlikely opportunity convinced her. Goliath took a sip of water and continued. She still doubted that you would ever agree to such a thing. The girl loves you, I can admit that. So I proposed another solution. After your defeat, these 5 guys will drink you blackout, and they will give you a dose of the drug. This drug erases your memory for 24 hours and is quickly metabolized in the body, which makes it difficult to detect. That's why I can tell you all this with complete honesty. You will not remember a single word you said tonight. Nothing, zero, emptiness. So we have 40 men ready to compete in a tournament for a cash prize and a night with your wife. I'm the strongest man in this building, and I let everyone believe they had a chance when in fact they don't. If I win 40,000, I'll split it with Stacy and make love to her all night while you're drunk and forgetful. In the morning, they'll take you home so you can sober up. I'll bring your wife to your house when I can't raise my hand anymore. You'll wake up, she'll tell you how she won $20,000 in a competition, and you can starting a family. You won't remember anything, and she'll have the money, and I'll try to drain her energy all night. You just made a big mistake, Gerald, I said. Yes, which one? He grinned. You just told these 5 thugs your plan. Why would they keep me now? I asked. That's a fair question, he suggested. These 5 know better than anyone that they don't stand a chance against me. They've already received payment from your lovely wife to make sure everything goes according to plan, so they won't be competing. Did Stacy pay them? I was perplexed. That's right, man, said the guy to my left. I envy you, Army. I'm thinking of hiring her to teach my wife how to do it the same way she did it, he scoffed. Stacy gave me a sad smile, and I asked, Is this true? Did you do this to all 5 of you before I came? She couldn't find anything to say and just looked at the floor. Sorry, guys. I have no interest in entering these competitions or winning anything, especially anything related to her. She's yours. Do what you want with her. I'm leaving, I said, trying to walk away. I'm afraid we can't allow that, Army, Goliath repeated. A deal is a deal. I gave your wife my word that you would arm wrestle for her honor. Then I promised that you would not remember anything about what happened that night. She has no honor. I don't care anymore who she sleeps with. Right now, I just want to divorce this traitor as soon as possible. Stacy began to sob at my harsh words and feelings. Don't pay any attention to his words, Stacy. Like I said, he won't remember anything tomorrow. He'll be a loving husband again. You have my word, Goliath assured her. Stacy smiled faintly at his support, despite my threats to divorce her. Enough talk. Let's go and start the competition, okay? Goliath insisted. 5 men forcibly brought me to the arm wrestling table. The judges stood up to oversee the final match of the night and announce the winner. As I stood across the table from this giant, it was obvious that no one in the room believed that I would win. They grinned and laughed, knowing that Goliath would have Stacy, and they were jealous of the pleasures he would have with my wife. As I stood in front of the table, the room finally fell silent, and I began to speak. "Where's the $40,000 in prize money? I want to see it," I said. "Why do you want to see the money, little man? You have no chance of winning it," Goliath boasted. "Perhaps so," I confirmed. "However, everyone here used my wife for inspiration before the match. I just want to see the money for my inspiration. It doesn't break any rules, does it?" I asked. "Probably not, little man." He nodded to one of the five, who went into the office to fetch a locked box of money. He opened it for me to see. "Everything is in order. Can one of the judges quickly count the money to make sure everything is in place?" Goliath nodded again. "Mr. Albright, could you do that?" Judge Justin Albright quickly counted and confirmed the presence of $40,000. "Sir," I asked, "if you don't mind, I would like you to hold the money until the end of the final so that it can be immediately awarded to the winner." Justin looked at Goliath, who said, "Go ahead. Your reputation is impeccable. We trust you completely," and Justin held the 2-inch thick neat stack of $400 bills close to him for safety. "Happy, Army?" Goliath grinned. "Completely satisfied," I confirmed. "Okay, enough delay. Let's get this fight over with so I can sleep with your wife. Come here, honey. Let me taste that sweet thing again," he boasted. Stacy walked up to him and gave him the best kiss. I have never been so furious and humiliated in my life. When he had had his fill of Stacy's temptations, she approached me to encourage me in the same way. I stopped her in her tracks. "Don't ever touch me again, Stacy. I may not remember anything tomorrow, but I hope you never forget what I'm about to tell you now for the rest of your life. 20,000 for a night of unlimited sex with you makes you, darling, a woman of easy virtue, but still makes you a woman of easy virtue. You are just a woman of easy virtue, who, if I had the opportunity, I would divorce you right here and now. You are disgusting. Get out of my sight so that I don't see you. Let Goliath enjoy you, but I don't want to see you. Your presence makes me want to vomit right on that bastard." Stacy began to sob loudly at my harsh words. Every man in the room was angry at my insults towards their lover. She moved behind me as I asked, and Goliath defended his prey. "Who are you to talk to her like that? You can't treat her like that," he commanded. "She was my wife, but if I can fix this, she will never be my wife again. Then she can sleep with everyone and have all your children, and I won't care. I used to love her, but now I hate her. She will never give birth to my children again," I replied angrily. The room became strangely quiet. Everyone was confused by my words, but they sympathized with Stacy. "Enough talking, little man. Put your hand on the table, and I will show you your place, and shut your mouth," Goliath commanded. Everyone in the hall cheered in support of Goliath, confident of his victory. Knowing that I had no other choice, I placed my relatively small hand on the table against the mass of Goliath's muscles. We clasped our hands tightly, making sure they didn't slide and there would be no tricks. Referee Kevin Saunders once again repeated all the rules before the start of the fight. I heard Stacy behind me tell Goliath not to hurt me. If he could, I'm sure he would break my arm. However, he knew that if I caused harm, she wouldn't be happy, so I told her that he would give me a chance. I tensed with all my might. Our hands did not move. It was like pushing against steel. He asked his friend to count 30 seconds, which seemed like an eternity. He then boasted loudly, "Now I'm going to show you a muscle therapy lesson, little man." He grinned and began to relentlessly push my hand towards the table. My hand and wrist shook like a leaf in the wind as I resisted his pressure. It did not help. As if in slow motion, my brush touched pillows, and the judge declared Goliath's victory. The room erupted in loud applause for his success over his brash husband. I walked away from the table for a few seconds, taking deep breaths and waving my arms, shaking off defeat. 2 out of 3, I reminded him, immediately putting my hand back on the table. Goliath laughed in my face. You clearly don't understand anything about muscles, little man. Fast-acting muscles are anaerobic. All the deep breaths in the world won't save you from defeat. I promise you, she deserves every penny of that 20,000. The room erupted again at his words. His statements only made me angrier. Kevin again gave instructions and signaled for the start. Goliath smiled widely. I pressed him as hard as I could again. I used the handle and rotated my hips for maximum leverage against him. After about 10 seconds, he began to push my arm down to achieve the final victory. My hand was shaking again like a leaf, trembling with all my strength. Then I felt something. It was a strange feeling. It was as if he had reached his limit. My hand stopped shaking and became fixed on its mission. I let out a loud moan, giving it all I had. I was breathing like a marathon runner. Then it happened. His arm began to give way as my endurance muscles pressed against his limited resources. The crowd watched in disbelief as I slowly but steadily pinned his hand to the table. I could almost feel his energy draining away while my strength remained undiminished. When the judge declared victory, deathly silence reigned in the hall. The amazement was indescribable. He jumped away from the table in bewilderment. "No!" he shouted. "There's no way he beat me. It's just an accident. You're about to lose, boy. I'll crush you like a bug. Let's do it," he commanded. He took off his jacket and tore the t-shirt off his torso with both hands. His muscles glistened in the light. All his defined muscles were visible. Goliath flexed his muscles like the Incredible Hulk and let out a roar of rage. He placed his elbow forcefully on the table, challenging me to the final match. One of us was about to suffer a second defeat and a final defeat. He was determined that it would be me. I ignored his antics. I've seen this many times before. Again, I took deep breaths, oxygenating my blood before taking on the challenge. I wanted to finish the match before he regained his strength. Kevin completed his duties and gave the signal to begin. I knew that Goliath's rage would motivate him to use all his strength from the very beginning to prevent a repeat of my previous victory. He roared in rage, pushing my hand with all his energy. All I had to do was keep my hand from being completely defeated and wait for him to exhale. My hand was an inch from the pad. My hand was shaking again, trembling with tension. Then I heard a voice behind me. "Come on, Goliath, pin him down. Show the boy who the real man is. Finish him. Finish him now." Stacy encouraged me. The crowd erupted with Stacy's courage and passionate appeal. But Stacy didn't take into account how her words would affect me. Angered, my body was filled with adrenaline again. Combined with my regular breathing, I let out a deep groan and with renewed vigor broke through our stalemate, which lasted about 45 seconds. Our hands slowly rose and began to move in the opposite direction. I felt his hand give way under my relentless pressure. Our hands turned over, and I began to push his hand towards his side of the table. He growled and twisted more, trying to gain more power, but it was no use. With what little strength I had left, I pinned his wrist to the pillow, and Kevin declared my victory. I did it. I defeated Goliath 2 out of 3 times. This was the end. Goliath asked in amazement, How the hell did you do that? I've never lost to anyone as petty as you. I need to know," he pleaded. "I will answer your question if you promise to fulfill 2 conditions," I offered. "Name them," he agreed. "Firstly, the money must be handed over to me before I give my answer, the entire amount of 40,000. Secondly, I want to leave here under my own feet and without anyone trying to stop me. Can you give me your word?" I set the conditions. Goliath nodded in agreement. "Justin, give him the money." He handed me the money, and I quickly stuffed the wad of bills into my trouser pocket. It took some effort, but I succeeded. I want everyone here to know that Mr. Bostic won this competition fair and square. Whether we like it or not, no one should touch him. After he gives your explanation, he will be able to leave here unhindered," Goliath announced. Stacy just stood there in shock. Having calmed down, I decided to tell everyone. All my life, I either worked on a farm or in construction. I dealt with heavy loads day after day. I did this almost non-stop all my life. I may not have developed well-defined arm muscles like many here, but my muscles gave me stamina and strength. When I joined the Marines, I was assigned to the 12th Marines, located at Camp Hansen in Okinawa, Japan, and also at Camp Mujuk for several years, near the city of Pohang in South Korea. We were advised not to interact too closely with the locals due to cultural differences, and were advised to stay close to Marine-friendly establishments. As a result, we became very creative, coming up with creative ways to have fun with high testosterone levels. Here tonight. Arm wrestling quickly became a popular activity for relieving stress and boredom. Over time, we developed weight classes, but then we wanted to see the best from each category fighting against the best from more heavy categories. After a year of arm wrestling, I didn't lose a single match. One of the basic doctors conducted a special examination to determine how I defeat opponents nearly twice my weight. He suggested that my arms were primarily equipped with aerobic slow twitch muscles. People like you lift weights for short periods of time, developing fast twitch muscles that produce huge bursts of energy for short periods of time. My arms may not be as strong as many others, but I have stamina and toughness. My arms can work all day long as I breathe and provide oxygen to them. The way I defeated you is not through sheer strength, but through endurance as your anaerobic muscles began to tire. Even when I was in the Marine Corps, I was nicknamed Army for two reasons. The word Army means strong, and I also gained fame due to my hand. So that's it. I gave you my explanation. Now I will leave and let you continue with your business. I calmly stood up and began to walk towards the door. No one made a single move or said a word. They were still in shock. Then Stacy called me. "Darling, this is wonderful. Wait, I'll go home with you," she begged. "I'll wait outside. Go and get dressed before you go home," I replied. She accepted my remark as a sign of encouragement. I meant it simply as a tactical delay to buy time to get away. She quickly ran into the office to change into regular clothes, while I hurried outside to look for Hal. When he saw me, he flashed his headlights. I knew he wouldn't leave me. As I hurried to his car, I saw 5 men leaving the building and searched the parking lot looking for me. They soon started running towards me. Hal decided not to wait and took off, leaving footprints on the asphalt. I miraculously avoided a bullet with a saved memory of the night's events. "I swear I didn't leave you alone, Army," Hal assured. "Several big guys threw me out the door and threw my phone on the ground. They said it was a closed event and I wasn't invited. That's why I waited for you, even all night if necessary. Judging by the way these guys are on your tail, this is definitely not a friendly approach." "I knew you'd be there, Hal. I was counting on you," I replied. "I'll always have your back, man. You know that. So tell me what happened and where should I take you?" he asked. "Take me home," I asked. Then I told him all the events of the night. Hal was shocked. He couldn't believe that Stacy could betray me like that. And the idea of using a banned substance was simply beyond the pale. He simply shook his head in bewilderment at her betrayal. I explained that my phone was left in the hall. I didn't want to waste time trying to get it back, and since I didn't have it, no one, especially Stacy, would be able to contact me, which was for the best. "What do you want me to do?" Hal asked when we arrived at my house. "How about we park behind the building? I'm guessing Stacy will show up soon. If she comes alone, I'll talk to her while I pack my things. I hope you'll let me stay with you for a couple of days until I decide what to do next." "Of course you can. Don't even ask, but I only have a spare sofa in a small apartment." "The couch will be perfect, Hal, thank you. If Stacy comes home alone before I leave, I'll run into her that night and make my intentions known. If she will lead, if I have one of these thugs with me, I will quietly leave through the back door and hide with you in your house." "Got it," Hal answered shortly, parking behind the building. I packed 2 suitcases and buttoned up the second when Stacy came running towards me. "Thank God you're here. I was afraid you wouldn't be there when I arrived," she said remorsefully. "Did you come alone, or 5 guys somewhere nearby?" I asked. "No one else will come, Army," she shuddered. "Just you and me. I want to apologize for my behavior tonight. I was caught up in the excitement of it all. I was hoping you would win, but I had to play both sides so we could have at least 20,000 to start our family. You were incredible. You put Goliath in his place and showed everyone what you are capable of. You saved me from a night of debauchery, dear. Now we are all 40,000, and I am so happy to be your lover for the whole night, instead of submitting someone else. It's not the way I remember it, Stacy. I definitely remember you saying, "Come on, Goliath. Pin him down. Show the boy who the real man is. Finish him. Finish him now." She looked sensibly at the floor for a moment. Like I said, I played both sides. Funny, I don't remember you taking my side. Well, now you can play on their side for the rest of your life. Once we let's get divorced, you can have all the men you want, and I won't have any objections, I said angrily. She began to sob uncontrollably. No, you can't say that. You're just angry right now. I will never give up on us, Army. We are made for each other forever. We were meant to be apart forever. I'm so glad we broke up before we had a baby. I would hate having to deal with you for the rest of the baby's life. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Why don't you go see who it is, honey? Stacy suggested sweetly. I don't care who it is. I just want to get out of here and away from you, I said. It's okay, I'll see who it is, she kindly suggested. Of course I knew who it was. I'm sure it was those 5 thugs who came to finish what they had to do, and I wasn't going to stay and let them finish it. I quietly walked out the back door with 2 bags and hurried to Hal's car. It was a salvation. I spent the night on Hal's couch. He was armed and ready to defend his home if necessary. On Sunday morning, I bought 2 inexpensive round-trip tickets to Las Vegas. Hal and I visited several gambling establishments in Sin City. We collected all the lost betting receipts we could find on the floor and in trash cans. Although I didn't need it, we didn't stop until we had $40,000 worth of receipts. When Stacy realized I was serious about divorce, I was sure she would try to demand half the money. I wasn't going to let her benefit from her dirty behavior. Perhaps all her lovers signed an agreement to share the winnings with her, but I did not sign. I took Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off. I felt I needed to act quickly. I visited the first lawyer who could see me. Lincoln Price said the simple divorce I want would cost about $4,000, $1,400. I paid him $5,000 in cash and asked for a receipt. I told him that the extra charge is for first-class service, which I am confident of. The money speaks for itself, and I felt like I was going to have a fighter. He said he could serve her the papers in court on Tuesday afternoon. The faster, the better. We only had 2 credit cards, and they were in both of our names, so I canceled them. Fortunately, they were not in debt. The amounts in our checking and savings accounts were not worth the fight in my opinion, so I left them untouched but opened a new bank account in my name only and asked HR to deposit the salary into this new account. I also canceled service on my phone. It was a relief to deny her access to me. I bought a temporary phone until I decided what to do next. The number was only shared with people I trust, Hal and my parents. On Tuesday, I was looking for an apartment. I found a decent and affordable apartment near my place of work. My parents would gladly accept me, but I am too independent to return home. They were shocked to learn about Stacy's behavior. I didn't tell them all the details, just that she decided to provide sexual services to others, and I can't stand it. They were very disappointed in her and understood why I left her. I asked Hal for one more favor. On Wednesday, we used his pickup truck to move my things from my old home that I shared with Stacy to my new apartment during the day to avoid her. I wanted all contact to go through Lincoln, my lawyer, but it didn't work out the way I hoped. She must have been following me from work one day because 30 seconds after I arrived at my new apartment, she came to my door. After 10 minutes of continuous knocking, I finally let her in. Whatever you have to say, Stacy, just say it quickly and leave. I'm going to make dinner, and you're not invited. Why did you file for divorce? She asked. I told you I was going to do this and why. Don't waste my time asking questions you already know the answers to. I explained why I did it. I did it for us. Maybe I went the wrong way. Via, I admit it, but I never thought for a second that it would turn out like this. Okay, thank you. I heard what you said. You can leave now, I insisted. Please, Army, 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes, and if you still want me to leave after this, I'll leave. I looked at her carefully and placed a blank piece of paper and a pen in front of her. I'll give you your 30 minutes if you give me something as a sign of goodwill. Sure, Army. Whatever, she offered. I want the names, addresses, and marital status of the 5 guys you were intimate with. I also want Goliath's home address and marital status. You give me that information and you get your 30 minutes, I offered. I can't do this, Army, she sank. Anything but this. I'm afraid that you will go behind them, and it will end badly for you. I cannot risk it. I see. Well, since you tend to make unilateral decisions for my well-being, I will do the same for you. You need to leave now, Stacy, because if you don't leave, I can't be responsible for your well-being. I can't risk it. Go away and don't come back, I said sharply. But Army, leave. It was clear that protecting their lovers or partners for her was more important than reconciliation with our family, because she left without saying another word, only with tears. At least I was hoping for temporary relief from her unrealistic expectations. Lincoln, my lawyer, told me that Stacy had hired her lawyer, who, being a friend of the judge, got the judge to order me to attend a minimum of 8 sessions of marriage counseling for the purpose of reconciliation, even without a hearing. Lincoln was surprised that the judge would do this, but judges are given enormous discretion in divorce cases. We lived in a very conservative community that frowned upon divorce. Lincoln was at least able to negotiate my choice of consultant. He recommended 2 who he thought would be impartial and fair. I chose a man to conduct 90-minute sessions. At the first session, after listening to Stacy's apologies for our misunderstanding and her statement that nothing happened, she began to aggressively deny my accusations, claiming that I was jealous of her good friends at the gym. After hearing this nonsense, my task became easier. Instead of calling her a liar or making more accusations, I decided to take a different route. I admitted that I had fallen out of love with her and couldn't bear the thought of spending another day with her. I told her and the counselor that I thought she was anorexic and ugly, and that any children we might have would look terrible. I played on superficial feelings, saying that all the love I once felt had turned into hate. She sobbed loudly at these new revelations, completely denying my feelings. Although the consultant was stunned, he too kept Stacy from inappropriately denying my feelings. During the second session, I was asked what exactly I didn't like about Stacy so she can work on improving our relationship. I told her she needed to have extensive plastic surgery on her face, completely change her appearance, and change her hair color to long red locks. I said she had the body of a 16-year-old nanny. I suggested that she dial 50 pounds 23 kilograms, and then we could talk. The consultant objected to my offensive position and suggested that most men would appreciate Stacy's fitness. I then suggested that all these men can take her for themselves. In our third session, he asked us to make a list of positive traits or characteristics that we like in another or that we find attractive. I turned this assignment into a joke by writing just one positive quality. She read out her long list of my virtues, hoping to stroke my ego. I completely ignored her words, and when asked to read what I wrote, I said that the only positive thing I could say was that she politely closes the bathroom door when she goes there to relieve herself. They both seemed outraged by my rudeness. I spent the rest of our sessions convincing them that there were no words that could make me love her again. I relentlessly repeated that marrying her was the biggest mistake of my life. When asked what type of woman I liked, I explained that I had a few Asian women in mind that I could ask out after my divorce. Stacy demanded that I give her the names and locations of these women. I simply stated, "You give me the list I asked for, and I'll give you mine." The next week I had her list. "Okay, Army, I gave you what you asked for. Now it's your turn to fulfill your promise and give me the list of women you talked about last week." "Fair enough," I said, and sat down and made a list and handed it to her. "What the hell?" she asked in confusion. It's a list of old ladies in their 60s and 70s, and none of them are Asian, Stacy said. Did you think I said Asian? No, stupid. I said I had a few aging women in mind that I could ask out. I laughed. The only Asian woman I know is happily married to Bill Fremont with 3 kids, and she wouldn't give me a second chance. I saw mixed emotions on Stacy's face. On the one hand, she seemed relieved that I wasn't showing interest in another particular woman. On the other hand, she was angry that I played on her insecurities to get the list. This list will save me time and money on a private investigator. Then the attack began. Stacy must have launched a massive campaign involving all my friends and acquaintances to convince me to make peace and give her another chance. Many of the people who approached me were longtime friends whom I had known for years. She even got my parents to try to convince me that Stacy was truly remorseful and that I should seriously consider giving her a second chance. I didn't want to lose all my friends by isolating myself or disowning them. I took a more subtle approach, plugging in my headphones every time Stacy's name came up in conversation and turning up the volume. Without saying a word, my message was clearly and repeatedly understood, and these incidents quickly ceased. However, she was never able to convince Hal. He was firmly on my side. The fact that none of the names on the list were the target of my physical attack encouraged Stacy that I was beginning to come to terms with her infidelity and her intentions. However, the counseling sessions came to an end without any breakthrough towards reconciliation. Stacy again begged me to forgive her and give her another chance. She made a tearful, emotional speech that could have touched anyone, but not me. The consultant then asked for my final word. Stacy, what you gave to those 5 bastards and that idiot Gerald was something precious that I mistakenly believed was mine and mine alone. Our marriage will never recover from this because you showed that my faith in your devotion was nothing but an illusion. All I had was empty hopes. I don't want the kind of love you can offer anymore. I'm sure men will line up to be with you, them. Good luck with your search. Our marriage is dead. Please let it go. I got up from the chair and walked away, leaving her sobbing and shaking her head. I didn't look back. As expected, her anger increased due to my constant refusal. She hired a lawyer who demanded legal disclosure of all financial assets, including $40,000. She demanded half the amount. Through my lawyer, I provided a receipt for $5,000 for divorce services, receipts for $1,000 for a trip with Hal to Las Vegas, including airfare, taxis, and food, and receipts for lost bets amounting to $34,000 for the same day. The entire amount was legally accounted for. She and her lawyer protested that I shouldn't have spent half of it, to which my lawyer reminded everyone that the money had been spent before she was served with the divorce papers, so the entire amount was mine to do with as I pleased. As a show of good faith, I allowed Lincoln to leave all the small amounts in our checking and savings accounts to her. It made her feel like she had won in some way. She never knew that I was still sitting on most of the winnings. Our divorce hearing was scheduled in 2 weeks. I felt the time had come for my next step. Through a courier service, I sent copies of the audio recordings to the wives of the 4 thugs who received intimacy from Stacy. The 5th guy was not married, but he had a girlfriend. I provided details of the events that night and asked them to consider whether their boyfriends had planned to be out all night that night for confirmation. The girls could check it out with Stacy. I heard that 3 of the 5 were kicked out of the house indefinitely, but none of the relationships were permanently severed. They convinced their partners that they had never had sexual relations with Stacy. Everything was one-sided. I also made sure that Gerald Goliath Jenkins' wife received a copy of the undirected audio tape. He was my main target because the whole idea of the competition and the offer to pump me up and erase my memory belonged to him. It turns out he cheated twice before. The 3rd time was the last. She had forgiven him in the past for the sake of their 2 young children. She wasn't going to repeat that mistake. The divorce between Calvin Bostic and Stacy Bostic has been finalized. Child support was not required because Stacy's income from the gym was sufficient. I was glad about this. After the divorce, Lincoln informed me that I could not sue the gym for damages because they did not have a policy against flirting, so I did the next best thing I could. I contacted the local press and told my story from beginning to end, naming names. The surge in negative opinion and attention to the scandal prompted the management of the Stokes Fitness Palace gym to fire Goliath and Stacy. I realized that I would probably force them to unite, but I didn't care about such things anymore. As it turns out, Goliath desperately wanted to reconcile with his wife. He loved his children almost as much as he loved having affairs. Like Stacy, he swore to his wife that he did not have sexual relations with Stacy, although he could not deny the record that the only reason he did not do so was because I won an arm wrestling competition against him. He tried to convince her that he deliberately lost the competition because he couldn't go through with it. He knew that if he had any more relationship with Stacy, his wife would never forgive him. Therefore, he stopped all contact with Stacy completely. Stacy returned to work as a waitress at Higgins' restaurant. I have always been a good tipper when visiting this establishment, and the girls fought to serve me. I continued to tip generously when I was served there. Stacy tried to talk to me several times, but I ignored her. She soon got the hint. The other girls didn't want me to stop being a regular customer because of her. One day, Hal approached me nervously, saying it was time to come out of my shell and start living again. The loss of the company was really felt strongly, to be honest. He said he was setting me up on a blind date for this Saturday night. How could I refuse my best friend who has been with me through thick and thin? I owed him courtesy and respect, so I reluctantly agreed to his request this time. Before he left, he asked if he could borrow $1,000 from me. Without hesitation, I agreed and offered more if he needed it. Handing him the money, I told him it was a gift, not a loan. I didn't want to pay back a single cent. He gave me a strange smile as he left. He was evasive and kept a secret when I asked about a date. He asked me to come to his house at 7 p.m. on Saturday, dressed casually, where he would meet me at the door and introduce me to my date. He said his girlfriend, Melinda, is just as excited as he is. Melinda was a great girl, and I honestly didn't understand why they hadn't gotten married yet. They were the perfect couple if such a thing existed. I put on my newest casual clothes and headed down the familiar path to Hal's house. There were quite a lot of cars around, but surprisingly, one parking space right next to his house was free, and he waved at me to park there. We hugged in a friendly manner, and he enthusiastically led me into the house. There wasn't much sign of activity in the house, but Hal led me down to the basement. I heard someone whisper before we entered the pool room in the basement where Hal and I spent a lot of time. I was shocked to see more than 10 very attractive ladies, all in bathrobes. I recognized a few of them from school, some I hadn't seen in years. "Hey girls," I said nervously. "Hi, Army." They tried to answer in unison with smiles and a melodic tone. "What's going on here? Are all you beauties my blind date?" I laughed. The women simply giggled in response until Hal took the floor. "Not really, Army. I doubt you'll be able to handle these beauties right away," he responded sympathetically. Melinda helped Hal with the continuation. "Okay, girls, it's time for the big opening and parade. Let's show our product to the champion," she ordered. The girls seemed to be rehearsing before my arrival. They all took off their robes and put them aside. I counted 12 beautiful women in front of me in conservative but elegant one-piece swimsuits. The swimsuits were revealing enough for me to appreciate the shapes and curves of each, but were not vulgar. I was immediately impressed. It reminded me of Stacy's skimpy micro-bikini incident, but these ladies were 100 times more deserving than Stacy that night. Hal continued. "Army, all these girls know what happened to you and how you humiliated Goliath that night at the gym, so you're kind of a folk hero to them. They know you're single now, so Melinda and I brainstormed and came up with what we think is a fantastic idea. She and I selected every woman you see here today. They are all single, none of them are in serious relationships, and each of them is the epitome of beauty, as you can see, Melinda and I invited these girls to participate in an arm wrestling competition tonight. It's more of a fun competition than a serious one. No one here is a bodybuilder or a weightlifter. They're all in good shape and taking care of themselves, but they're all just looking for fun. Hal continued, they're here for 3 reasons. To have fun, win cash prizes, to be your blind date for the night. The top cash prize for the winner is $500, second place is $200, third is $70, fourth is $50, and fifth place is $40. Everyone else finishing 6th through 12th will receive $20, mostly to cover travel expenses. So the total prize money for tonight is $1,000. By the way, thank you for sponsoring this event. That was very kind of you, Hal laughed. I replied, I knew you were up to something, I just had no idea what it was. Hal announced, okay, ladies, you all know the plan for tonight. But for the army, this is all a surprise, so if you don't mind, I'll explain to him how it will work. Army, this will be a double elimination competition like the ones you are used to. We would like for you to start each match and Melinda to referee and announce the winner. During the competition, girls will be able to get to know you better. Once the winner is chosen, she can be your blind date for the night, but she is under no obligation to do so. Sometimes the chemistry may not work, and we don't put any pressure on the ladies. Honestly, the way they all look at you like you're a delicacy, I don't think it'll be a problem, he laughed. I was ready for this experience. Of course, I was no stranger to arm wrestling, and it was a fun way to get a blind date. Nobody knew who the winner would be, especially me. Hal was right, every woman was vivacious and attractive. I had no idea that there were 12 women available for dating in our area, so that was a very pleasant surprise. An arm wrestling table was installed next to the pool table. Hal assigned each contestant a number and used a random number generator to select the pairings. The women sat on opposite sides of the table. I tied their hands in the correct shape, holding them straight and centralized between them before giving the command, go. Melinda and Hal were right. It was very funny. Everything happened on a light note, and even the losers laughed and enjoyed the company. Each of the girls asked for a kiss on the cheek for good luck, and I happily agreed. The winner was determined in less than 30 minutes. Bobby Sue Barker won the $500 grand prize for her entry. Bobby Sue looked like Hannah Jeter, the actress. Seeing her in a modest one-piece swimsuit, I was delighted. After accepting the plastic trophy and cash prize, she looked at me nervously. Well, Army, I've never invited a man on a date, so this is new to me. I'd be happy to be your blind date tonight, if that's okay, she said. I gratefully accept your generous offer, Bobby Sue. I look forward to getting to know you better. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. Let me quickly change my clothes. Out of this swimsuit, and we can go wherever you want. Hal and Melinda vouched for you in the best possible terms, and that's enough for me. While Bobby Sue was changing, 7 other girls came up to me, reminded me of their names, gave me their business cards with contact information, and told me to call them if Bobby Sue didn't work out. I treated Bobby Sue to a very nice dinner and movie on our first date, while the rest of the girls had fun playing pool with Hal and Melinda. As you might expect, Bobby Sue and I hit it off immediately. She perfectly filled the void left by Stacy. Over time, we talked a lot about loyalty. Her previous boyfriend also cheated on her, so we both felt the consequences of cheating and betrayal acutely. Bobby Sue Baker became Bobby Sue Bostick. She worked as a stenographer for our county court and was highly respected. Since I still had most of the winnings from 40,000, we decided not to delay and start having children. Within 5 years, we had a boy and a girl. We still frequented Higgins' restaurant, where Stacy continued to work as a waitress. I saw tears in her eyes as she looked at the family that was meant to be hers and how we happily enjoyed our time together. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.